A dense air defense system has been deployed around the Russian capital, designed primarily to protect the Kremlin and security agencies. Radio Liberty journalist Mark Krutov published a map of the complex's locations, noting dozens of positions for the Pantsir S-1 and Tor systems. According to the collected data, anti-aircraft systems have been installed both in Moscow and the surrounding region. Some of them are located directly on the roofs of strategic buildings, including the Ministry of Defense and the Moscow Department of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. The map shows over 70 locations where air defense systems have already been spotted or turrets have been erected. Orange marks positions where experts estimate new installations may soon appear. Red marks the locations of drone crashes or their wreckage, where Ukrainian drones managed to break through the defensive ring around Moscow. The so-called elite of the Russian Federation is now reliably protected, while Russia's regions, especially those bordering Ukraine, remain completely vulnerable to attack. Residents of the Belgorod, Kursk, and Bryansk regions face the consequences of attacks daily, but the Kremlin appears to prefer to protect only its own comfort and security. Meanwhile, Ukraine continues to actively strike military and energy facilities in Russia, including at a distance of more than 1,500 kilometers. These attacks demonstrate that even a dense air defense network does not guarantee security for Moscow, much less the rest of Russia. Recall, Putin had also decided to protect his residences in Valdai. The first air defense systems were spotted in Moscow on January the 19th, when a Pantsir S-1 was installed on the Russian Ministry of Defense building. A day later, a similar system was installed at one of Putin's residences 10 kilometers outside Moscow. On January the 23rd, Russian media published footage from the Valdai district of the Novgorod region. A new air defense system has been installed in the village of Yashcherovo. The head of the Kremlin is so afraid of Ukrainian drones that he decided to protect himself and his residences by installing the latest air defense systems. A Valdai resident admitted that he actually took the photo of the air defense system last week, but only sent it today to the editorial office of a Russian Telegram channel. According to the author of the photo, the system itself, which closely resembles the Pantsir S-1, was deployed in the Yashcherovo area a couple of weeks ago. Similar systems were recently installed in Moscow and the Moscow region. Russian media journalists concluded that the air defense system in the Novgorod region, near Putin's residence, appeared after a series of attacks by unknown drones on the Engels and Diaghilevo air bases in late 2022. Residents of the village of Yashcherovo admitted that the complex operates continuously. Up to 3 soldiers are stationed near it at all times. The radar antenna rotates constantly. Putin's residence is located 6 kilometers from the village of Yashcherovo on the shore of Lake Uzin. The residence, known as Valdai, is used by Putin not for official meetings, but as a vacation spot for himself and his family. Pop stars often attend private parties there. Putin also frequently holds meetings with VIP guests there. Locals admitted that Putin is a frequent guest in Valdai. There are no critical or military infrastructure facilities in the area. Media reports indicate that even during Soviet times, the 42nd Anti-Aircraft Regiment was stationed in this area, and its location was Valdai 4. Agents of the Atesh movement held another protest in the heart of Russia, St. Petersburg. According to the Underground, participants distributed hundreds of leaflets in various parts of the city, including metro stations, bus stops, and central streets. They contained calls to join the resistance movement and fight against Putin's regime. Despite increased patrols and the dense network of surveillance cameras, the operation was a success. Activists noted that interest in the resistance in Russia is growing, especially against the backdrop of the worsening economic situation and growing discontent with the war in Ukraine. According to Atesh representatives, even in traditionally loyal cities like St. Petersburg, more and more citizens are expressing fatigue with the Kremlin's repression and lies. Dissatisfaction with the regime is growing. The movement emphasizes that every piece of information transmitted about military installations, troop movements, or any other actions by Russian forces helps Ukraine and brings the regime's fall closer. Experts say that from a psychological perspective, the Putin regime has thus far been successful in maintaining support for the war among most Russians. Experts point out that one of the Kremlin's levers of societal control is the exploitation of fear. Not only fear of repression, but also fear of Russia's destruction should the regime fall. Russian expert Fiona Hill has noted that Putin is a master at manipulating fear. Having unleashed the war, he heightened the fear of a literal end of the world due to a nuclear cataclysm. The Putin regime's ideal formula for societal control has three components: exploiting fear of an external threat, maintaining a certain comfort level, thus making it possible to adapt to war conditions without much effort, and scoring new victories as a means of partially neutralizing fear so domestic anxieties do not threaten the regime. The developments in the Kursk region have only partially affected the second component of this formula and jeopardized the third, which contributed to the drop in Putin's rating. For the overwhelming majority of Russians, the first two components, fear of an external threat and the ability to adapt to it, have not fundamentally changed. Nevertheless, to prevent further loss of confidence and the destruction of basic support for the regime, Putin faces a rather difficult task: to demonstrate in the near future new military victories and avoid bringing a larger portion of Russian society into the war. In some ways, the ongoing Russian offensive in the Pokrovsk direction is meant to deliver some political capital to Putin's Kremlin, though Moscow will need more. Now, Russian military and political strategists are searching frantically for ways to solve this problem.